Alright guys, interesting day, very interesting. Just a whipsaw tape, just a regular range day. Um, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell was speaking in the morning. He had I think, meeting about the monetary policy, a lot of volatility, a lot of volume on the ES at that time, and there was a bit of uncertainty. We kind of sold off, we held the lows, and then we pushed higher, but then we sold immediately after once the meeting was over. But then we rallied towards the end of the day. I mean, if you look at the daily on most of these blue chip names, we are getting tight into the moving averages. Like look at Nvidia for example, right over here. I mean, we couldn't close once, we couldn't close twice. We kind of rejected, but we're holding the lows, so I think tomorrow should be interesting because the bulls are going to try to hold up the weekly, because if they get another red week, I think it's going to be very bad for them, and I'll go over that over the weekend as well. Um, let's look at Microsoft. Microsoft doesn't seem to care about what the rest of the market is doing. It's kind of acting on its own. As you can tell, it's above the moving average, the 9 moving average on the daily now, and we're holding a decent uptrend on the higher time frames. So that's interesting. Um, Going into tomorrow, I don't really have a trade plan on Microsoft. I'm just letting it do its thing. This this pivot high over here at 260 is going to be interesting to get over, because that's going to be its next range high, so we might see a bit of a rejection there tomorrow. Going into Meta held its range lows over here around 156-ish, and it has its medium range high around 160. It's trading in a tight range the past few days. If we look at the daily, we might squeeze the shorts from yesterday and potentially move higher, closer into the 9 moving average on the daily. Um, Today I took a trade on Baba, and I'm gonna go over the trade. And I'm gonna go over my mistake on the trade. I got stopped on this, not a top tick, but basically somewhere near it. So I was looking for a short off of this range high, mid 12, 112s, around 112.50. And my mistake was that that I should have waited for us to break the high um, of this range. So it's 112.75, and I got in before we even broke that. So I got in around 112.50, and I got stopped just below 13. But um, I wish I stood around. That's another mistake I do. Once I get stopped, I don't tend to stay around. There are two reasons for that: because I have the urge to get right back in, because I don't feel that my trade thesis is invalidated by getting stopped out. But I also have the issue of double jamming, which I've spoken about before. Double jamming is when I get stopped out, and then potentially in the current 5 minute that I get stopped out, I get right back in. And I had a big issue with that in the past, and um, I've dealt with it, and I stopped doing it. But um, I guess a way that I stop doing it is, once I get stopped out, I either step away from the screen or I step away from the ticker. Now I got stopped out over here. The trade was still good. The trade was still valid. Um, Baba gapped up. I guess we pushed off the 9 moving average on a daily. There was no real news. Not an insane amount of volume. Looking at the footprint chart, the sellers were stepping in over here. There was a bid um, right around what was it, like 112 35s, and we were holding price over there whenever we sold off. And you could just tell that when we got there, the offer was a little weak, but they were present. And that's very important. When the offer is present, then that means the sellers are trying. But the bids, they're going to be pushing higher. So I might do a footprint overview on what I'm really talking about over here, because for 99% of you, it's not really going to make sense if you don't know what a footprint chart is. So I may do an overview on that in the coming week or so. But just to review over here, my mistake was that I didn't wait for a failed breakout of this range high. We popped above it and then we sold immediately. So that was my trade and that was my mistake. Um, what I can do better on this trade is I could wait for the previous high to get taken out before I take a short, a major short from a higher time frame range. My next trade was on Amazon. Over here, I was looking for a continuation short. Now this was when volatility was pretty high, and this is when Jerome Powell was speaking. So we closed below the pivot between the high of the range and the low of the range. I thought we could get a continuation off the 9 moving average um, for another leg down, potentially into mid 107s to test this previous low. Um, and volatility picked up. I was up about an R and then came back and stopped me out. And I had a few chances to get out break even, but I don't necessarily want to because you never know what's going to happen in the market. If you have a trade thesis that's backed by your system, you don't necessarily want to go against your system. Sometimes it may work in your favor, sometimes it may not, but you never know when that's actually going to happen. So I don't necessarily, I'm trying to stay away from getting out break even on certain um, not on certain plays, just in general, because you honestly never know what's going to happen. There are trades where I get out break even and, I would have gone stop, but there are also trades where I get out break even and it would have never stopped me out and it goes to, my 4, 5, 6, 7R. So that's really my philosophy. You never really know what's going to happen. So why take the chance of potentially ruining a killer trade? Um, so Amazon on the daily, we are above the moving average now. So the 9 moving average, which is actually pretty good. Momentum can shift. The buyers really have to step it up tomorrow and have this weekly um, look very bearish for another following. Have the weekly look bullish so they can have some momentum going into next week. Um, if not, if we sell off from this range high, it could be interesting because then that means the Bulls keep trying, but they just aren't able to capitalize on their opportunities, and the Bears are stronger than the Bulls would have expected. Looking at AMD, AMD is still under the 9 moving average. Price is kind of choppy down here. We did bounce off the range lows from 80. It's going to be interesting to see AMD. I'm not really trading AMD right now. I'm waiting for it to kind of settle down over here. I want AMD to break these lows and potentially get to 75. That's when I'll be looking for a potential long swing. That's my idea on AMD. Um, and I'll be going over the weekly chart over the weekend as well. But this was just for today, market overview and my trades and what I can genuinely do better.